Video games, we all know what they are, but there are many different generations, those who grew up with video games and those who didn't. And between these generations, we all have our different opinion of video games.
Load times, please.
So, people in the older generation who didn't really experience or get the experience of growing up with video games are under the mindset that video games are bad. A lot of times, they look at violent video games and they link it to aggression. They say playing this video game causes this person to be aggressive in real life. And they say video games do nothing for you. All they do is take up your time. They don't bring you any benefit for real life. But I'm here to prove and show that's not true. If you grow up with video games, you experience them in a different way. And it's not about violence. And they do help you in life. Now the next generation. They grew up with video games, but they weren't the best. Stuff like the Nintendo 8-bit reign.
My name is Ryan Ranchiso. I am a teacher at Heartland Technical Academy. Been playing video games since I can remember. The first system I remember growing up was actually the Atari. I don't know which one my cousin had, but my cousin Joey, a few years older than me, he had Atari, and he had Pole Position, and he had Pitfall. And he had all these awesome games, and I went over there whenever we went up to Chicago to see my relatives, and we would play, and he would be tired of playing, but I could not get enough of it because I didn't actually have any video game systems in my house. So the Atari was the first one I remember, but I think the one I really grew up with was the original Nintendo. So the first games I played was on the Atari. I played Pole Position, which was an IndyCar game. I could do Pong. That was just hitting the ball back and forth between the two paddles. I was okay at Pitfall. Pac-Man he had, which I was okay at, but I was really young, so I didn't really understand what was going on. I just knew that you could play these cool things on your TVs, and it was fun, and I wanted to do more of it. Oh man, Nintendo, I could play that all the time. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I remember playing both the first one, which was hard as can be, and I still have never beaten it, and the second one, which was the arcade game. Mario, of course, were big ones. Any Legend of Zelda game. A really bad game called Bayou Billy, my friends and I seemed to like. Double Dribble, Blades of Steel, Mega Man games. I loved Castlevania games, Duck Hunt, Hogan's Alley. We liked a lot of the Punch-Out. Played Punch-Out a lot. Contra, still know the Konami code, up, up, down, down, left, right, A, B, start, select. Can still do that off the top of my head. So, Double Dragon, those were some of the games that I played a lot with friends. Well, I said that my parents didn't let me have any video game systems. I had a Game Boy. It was awful, could not play near the same kind of games my friends could. I'd go over there. So once I was old enough and had my own jobs, I bought all the systems. I had every single system in the last generation. I had a DS and a 3DS. I had a 360, a Wii, and a PlayStation 3. Just because now I'm overcompensating for never having them. And with my kids, I let my daughter get a Wii U because my wife didn't want her to have one. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that to my kid. If she wants one, she can have one. So, I grew up a gamer. I'm still a gamer. I love games on all of them right now. I love the Uncharted games. But again, what I was saying about college, it was just that time of my life and what we did. I would have to say the 64 is my favorite console just because of, those are some of the most fun nights I had. Might sound really geeky. My favorite nights in college wasn't going to like a frat party or, the club or anything like that. It was me and like 6 of my friends playing Mario Kart 64 and GoldenEye, which are probably my 2 favorite games because of just how much time we had with it.
Now the next generation is my generation. The generation that grew up with them and were good consoles. Xbox 360, PS3 era.
I'm Logan. I'm 18. I go to MacArthur.
I didn't need your school. The reason I asked for your name and shit is because, through like different generations, like the age you are affects like what type of video games you grew up with.
I like that there's no permanent consequence to video games. Like, you can do whatever you want, and if you don't like how it turned out, you can go back to that save and then just not do that.
Yeah, so like retries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Being able to relive in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, and did you grow up with video games ever since you were a little kid, or have you just recently started getting into them?
Well, I got my first Game Boy when I was like 4, and I had like a Bob the Builder and a Winnie the Pooh game for it. So, yeah, I'd say I definitely grew up with it. When my dad also had a PS1, and some of my earliest memories are coming home from like kindergarten or like preschool, and then watching him play the PS1.
Do you think it's growing up with video games has definitely been helpful in your life, or do you think that it's caused you more problems?
I think it's helped me personally with painting or sculpture, which I've been getting into a lot lately. I'll use video games in a lot of my influences. Just recently, I painted a picture of a girl with like a bow contemplating on going up to this red crystalline mountain, right, to try and steal loot or whatever she can find in this white castle. And you can see her like arm is scratching her neck, so as to show you like she's not sure about this, but she thinks she can handle it. I use the feelings I get from seeing big challenges in video games and trying to decide whether or not I can handle it, and especially that piece.
Were you more of a social gamer, or did you prefer the typical I'm my own adventure type of guy?
I really do prefer just playing alone, unless it's like with a buddy, like in the room or something. Like I'll usually only play one-player games unless like you're there, and in which case I'll play like Smash or whatever we happen to have on hand.
Alright, so do you have any final thoughts on just like video games in a whole sense?
I think games are best when nobody's trying to screw you over. Gaming is a lot better when people allow other people to game the way they want.
Welcome back, guys, to episode 2. It is Rumi here, and when we last left off, we had finished day 1 on the island, or I left it off literally right here. So let's go home and finish this up, beginning episode 2.
Alright, what's up, guys? My name's Gabe. I'm the creator of this documentary here. I'm 17. I'm friends with Logan and Ethan people. You might have seen some of their stuff here. But I'm just gonna openly talk about, what I think of video games and like why I did this documentary, just some final notes on it. So I decided to do this documentary because I've grown up with video games ever since I was a little kid, and I've always like struggled with these issues where it's like I always look up to people and I always wanted to be someone who I'm not. Because I have a brother who's 4 years older than me, and I was always striving to be like him. So, I looked up to him a ton, and I just, people saw me as Christian's brother, mini Christian, and I've struggled with, I want to be someone who I'm not. But when I discovered video games, and like in one of the very first video games that I played, it was, Kingdom Hearts. And that was a sort of like adventure game where you go out and you form your own path and you choose what you want to do, It kind of got me in the mind sense of like, I'm this new person. I'm someone who I want to be. I'm not striving to be someone else. I'm comfortable in my own shoes. And that's what video games kind of started making me appreciate in real life, It made me like think, why can't you be like this person? What? No, you're Gabe, you're fine in your own shoes. And playing through these video games and growing up with them really made me appreciate that, and I really recognized that. But there were other people in my life who thought that video games were just mindless and that it was just a waste of time. I'm not doing anything productive. They didn't understand the concept on why I would sit hours and hours and hours and lose myself and lose track of time and just be able to do that. That was like people like my parents. But I get that they didn't understand because they didn't grow up with video games the way I did. They didn't experience the same things I did. And it was like I decided to make this documentary to show like the difference between my parents and me and like the generation below me. Because there's such a big difference between my parents who think video games aren't productive and me who thinks they are productive and they help with my mental state and stuff. And I just wanted to like show the difference between growing up without video games really and then growing up with them and what they can do and what they don't do. How people like my parents and older didn't really grow up with it and they think video games are just pointless and dumb. But people like my age who can grow up and start with it and be like lose themselves and this other person. And it just makes them think, hey, I did that, I'm cool. I'm like that in real life too. And then, as I started getting a little bit older, and I got into high school, it was like things like, I don't think I'm good enough for these people, I'm scared of being judged, and all that. But then I got into this like social sense on like some of the consoles, like the Xbox 360 and stuff, like you could just go in and talk to people. Some people would be mean as all hell, but on the opposite sense, some people would be really nice and you can make new friends just online. And they'd appreciate you for you and you would for them. And all you do is you just play games together. And then you both can lose your mind sense. And you can both be this different person in this game. Because, it's always better with someone else. So, really, yeah. I decided to do this just to show the big difference between, like, the generations and how growing up with video games and not growing up affect people so much differently, and how video games can actually be super productive for some people, and how some it's just not for them. Everybody finds passion in their own different things, and for a lot of the world it's in video games. And just capturing this in film, and trying to just show some of the people that don't understand a reason why we do this, that's all I'm trying to do. Just give them an idea. But we do what we do because it helps us, and we're just trying to have some fun. So I guess, yeah, that's about it. I didn't really explain it. I mean, I kind of did, but just kind of, whatever.
So I hope this documentary kind of changed your perspective on video games, if you didn't really like them before, and if you liked them, just showed you how much others care about them too. So I guess I'll leave you with a question. Personally right now, what is your final thought on video games?